Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to talk about changes to YouTube advertising. We're going to talk about Facebook launching a social trust score and a whole lot more. So go ahead and stick around. Yo, greetings Earthlings. Welcome back to episode 133 of the BSP. My name is Bandrew. This is What I Says. Like always, down below there are timestamps of all the topics that I talk about, so you can skip around to whatever you want to listen to. But if you got the time, I'd suggest listening to the entire episode. Two personal things up top. First, if you want to find the audio version, the video version, or the show notes for each of these episodes, you can find that at bandrewsays.com. And secondly, I would love to hear some feedback from you guys about what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to change on this podcast, and you can send that to me on Twitter at bandrewsays. Now let's go ahead and jump into the first piece of news, and it would be that all YouTube creators are going to be getting an unskippable ad option. So there are currently two types of ads on YouTube, skippable and unskippable. And I don't think there needs to be any further explanation of those two types of ads because it's pretty self-explanatory. But in the video that I was watching that was announcing this change, they mentioned that non-skippable ads do have a time limit, but they didn't disclose what it was. So I went ahead and found the YouTube advertising format guidelines, and it looks like there's a 15 to 20 second time limit depending on regional standards. So people aren't going to be able to upload an hour-long unskippable ad. The max time length you will have is 20 seconds. So it's not as bad as I initially thought, but that is still pretty bad. But I think it's important to talk about who is going to be getting the non-skippable ad feature, and the answer there is actually pretty simple. Any YouTube creator who is currently in the YouTube Partner Program. You will be getting a non-skippable ad feature in the next week or so. But what is more important to me is how this is being implemented, and it was a little bit shocking to hear how they were doing this. Now, it is opt-out instead of opt-in. What I mean by that is all your videos that are currently monetized will now have non-skippable ads if you have video ads enabled. So that was a little bit shocking to hear, but they did point out that it will be pretty easy to undo that because they're allowing you to bulk edit your ad settings for all your library and also change your upload defaults for all the future videos that you will be uploading. So it is fairly easy to reverse that. Now, what I would have liked to have seen would be have this be an opt-in. So if they announce this, hey, you can do non-skippable ads, give it the option to turn it on rather than we're turning it on no matter what. Here are the steps you have to take to remove non-skippable ads. I would have liked it to be the opposite, but what are you going to do? That's how they're doing it, and there's not much we can change about how YouTube is working. So I do want to talk about the motivations behind this, and I honestly think it's a win-win for YouTube. And what I mean by that is with non-skippable ads, advertisers will pay a higher CPM because they know that the viewer will see the entire advertisement. They know the viewer will get the full message, and there's likely going to be a higher conversion rate of whatever they're asking you to do with the advertisement. So there's a higher CPM advertisers are paying, and that means Google is going to be getting more money. Win right there. But for the second motivation, I think we need to jump to the conspiracy corner. Now, the reason I think we need to head to the conspiracy corner is the second motivation could be considered a little bit shady, even though it is fully speculative. So this has a possibility of driving more people to sign up for the new service from YouTube, YouTube Premium, which goes ahead and removes all advertisements from the viewer's experience. Now, the reason I say that is they launched this product. Well, I guess it's been out for about a year, but they just rebranded it and have been really pushing it. YouTube Premium, take away ads. And then they announce every single video on YouTube that is monetized will now have unskippable ads. You will have to watch the advertising. So that seems like they are intentionally degrading the viewer's experience in order to motivate them to go ahead and pay them $10 or $12 a month to remove that bad experience, which does not seem like proper business etiquette. But I do want to point out again, this is purely speculative. I don't know what goes on in the Google boardrooms or the YouTube boardrooms, but when I look at this, that's exactly what it looks like. This little conspiracy to push people to pay them $10 or $12 a month to watch their platform and have a good experience. But that's my conspiracy. Let's get out of the corner. Now, maybe that didn't belong there, but I just love going to the conspiracy corner, so I figured, why the heck not? So I also do think it's important to talk about how this could potentially impact your channel as a creator. And of course, with the higher CPMs, there is the possibility that you will get more advertising dollars, a higher payout every single month with your AdSense. But before you leave non-skippable ads turned on your channel, I think you need to assess your videos. What type of content are you making? Is it long form? Is it short term? What type of value is the viewer ultimately getting? And the reason I am saying that is if you just have a 2-minute video and a viewer is forced to watch 20 seconds of advertisements before they get to your video, that's 10% of the time that they would watch your video. That's not really a good experience for the viewer. So although you may be getting a few more pennies every single 1,000 views, you need to ask yourself, is it worth alienating my audience member or making them have a bad experience for those few extra pennies? And I think you really need to assess that, because if your audience starts to feel alienated or like you are using them, they may stop watching your content completely. Now, I'll share my personal experience with non-skippable ads on Facebook, and it's not good for the creator. So I was watching a video over there a couple of months ago, and they showed you the first 3 minutes of the video to really get you sucked in and get you invested, and then they cut to 1.5 minutes maybe of unskippable ads. You had to watch that to see what the conclusion was of the show, of this clip, and that left such a bad taste in my mouth that said, I don't even care what the conclusion is. I feel like I'm being played by Facebook and by this creator. I'm not going to watch any more of their stuff. I'm going to block their videos. I don't care. So if I'm any indicator of the general population and how they view advertising and unskippable ads, maybe it's a bad idea to turn these on your channel if you have shorter form content or if you don't think the value is really offset by that ad. Now, that is just my take on it, and I will go ahead and throw a link to the actual announcement video, but I would also like to hear from you guys in the comments. Do you think this is a good thing for creators, a bad thing for creators? Will you be turning it on? Will you be turning it off? What are your thoughts on non-skippable ads being implemented for all creators on YouTube? Now let's jump to the next piece of news, which would be changes to the Twitch Prime subscription model. So there is only one big change occurring for people who have Twitch Prime. And if you don't know what Twitch Prime is, it's essentially if you have Amazon Prime, you can link that to your Twitch account and you get a couple of benefits there. One of them being universal ad-free viewing, another being a free sub per month, another being a bunch of different gaming loot, whatever the heck that means. But the only change coming is you no longer will be getting universal ad-free viewing. So according to Twitch, starting on September 14th, new members will no longer have ad-free viewing. Monthly Prime subs will get ad-free viewing through October 15th. Annual subs will have ad-free viewing until their next renewal date. And since you do get that one free subscription per month, if you subscribe to a channel, you will not see advertisements on that channel. So you do still get that benefit out of it. Now, everything else associated with your Twitch Prime subscription account thingy will remain consistent. The only thing changing is those ads. So I think it's important to ask, why is Twitch doing this? And Twitch came out and stated they are doing it to offer creators more opportunity to get support from their viewers, and also that ads allow them to continue making Twitch the best place for creators to build communities around the things they love and make money doing it. Now, surprisingly, given how much I just trashed YouTube for non-skippable ads, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. Do I think you're going to be getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for ad views? Probably not, because it's a lot more difficult, or seemingly a lot more difficult, to get that level of views on Twitch. I don't know what the CPM rate is there. Maybe it's a lot better than YouTube though. Now, of course, I will tell you how you go about getting no ads on Twitch, and surprise, surprise, it's another monthly subscription service, because Lord knows that's what we've all been needing more of, another service to pay $10 a month to, or in this case, $9 a month. And what you get when you sign up for Twitch Turbo, which is what it's called, you get ad-free viewing, you get exclusive emojis and a customizable name color in the chat rooms. You get a turbo badge in the chat so everybody knows that you pay Twitch, and you get priority customer support. Cool. Another subscription service, what I have always wanted. So, is this good or bad? I honestly don't know. And the reason I'm saying that is I don't create enough on Twitch to get ads, or even if I did have ads, I don't have enough views to get anything out of it. And I also don't watch enough Twitch to know what the experience is like when you get shown ads. So I'm not the best person to ask here, but I can say that I understand why Twitch is doing this, or I guess why Amazon is doing this. When I looked at Twitch Prime a few months ago when I first heard about it, I was actually shocked to see how much money they were losing by doing this. They give away $2.50 a month for every Twitch Prime subscription by allowing you to sub to somebody's channel for free. If I'm not mistaken, the creator gets $2.50 of that $5 subscription. So that's $2.50 down the drain. Also, no advertisements, all the free loot, everything. It is a tremendous value given everything else you get with your Amazon Prime subscription. So I am personally not too offended by this. I think it's perfectly fine to ask, hey, if you do not want ads, go ahead and pay us $9 a month. But I know I'm being a hypocrite because I just criticized YouTube. I would like to hear from you guys though, if you are a Twitch creator or a Twitch viewer. Are you okay with this? Do you hate this? What are you going to do? Are you going to pay the $9 a month? What are you going to do? And I'll go ahead and link an article from Twitch or a blog post from Twitch, as well as a link to the Twitch Turbo sign-up page. Next, let's jump to a few very fun pieces of news from Facebook. The first one being Facebook's social rating system. So, last year, Facebook put a trust score in place to assist in curbing fake news. The way this will work, or the way we understand it to work currently, is that if someone reports a story as false, and the story actually turns out to be false, your trust score will go up. Conversely, if someone were to repeatedly report stories as false that were to turn out to be true, your trust score would go down. So apparently the score is going to range between 0 and 1, and it's not just based on how you report stuff, it's based off of thousands of behavioral markers, which we don't understand. But that sounds very creepy and very concerning, especially since Facebook loves hoovering up all the data they can about you from all these third-party data aggregators and data brokers. Terrifying to understand that. But until we know more about this, because they're pretty secretive about it, there's not much that can be parsed from this story, except maybe, hey, it's time to stop using Facebook. Get off Facebook. It's a very creepy precedent that they're setting here, saying, we're going to go ahead and look at how you behave, look at how you rate stuff, and then create some kind of score, like a credit score, but for your trustworthiness. How long until they start making this score public? And additionally, how long until people start basing their interactions with people on their trust score for Facebook? I'm just going to go ahead and direct people to watch Community Season 5, Episode 8, which is titled App Development and Condiments, where it's an insane episode, but a couple of app developers go to Greendale Community College and they beta test a piece of software called Meow Meow Beans, which is where you rate your interactions with other people. And although the show is obviously absurd and over the top, I do think it offers somewhat of a valid illustration of how a social ranking system could be abused, or how it could impact social interactions or social hierarchies. It's absurd, but I think there are a lot of very good parallels and very good insights there. So I will go ahead and link that in the show notes and description, and it will be an affiliate link. If you want to pick it up, it'll give me a little bit of a kickback. And now let's jump to another piece of Facebook news where Facebook's VPN was removed from the App Store on iOS. So Facebook has an app called Onava, or they did have an app called Onava, and I talked about it in episode 110 of the Bandrew Says podcast, and it is a VPN app. So Apple came out with rules for the App Store that forbade developers from doing a couple of things. They said, we made it explicitly clear that apps should not collect information about which other apps are installed on a user's device for the purpose of analytics or advertising/marketing, and must make it clear what user data will be collected and how it will be used. Then according to Engadget, it's apparent that Facebook has been using this app for more than security, because in 2017, Facebook knew that Snapchat was struggling because it was collecting information about what apps were on people's phones and how much they were being used. So I don't think I need to say much here, except see you later, Facebook, with your dumb security apps just tracking everybody. You won't be missed. Get out of here. Unfortunately, I think it was 33 million people installed this, so 33 million people were having their behaviors tracked, and who knows how that impacted their trust score. Facebook, you creepy sons of guns. But hey, guess what? If you do use Android, you can still get it, because it hasn't been booted out of that store yet. That's where we're going to end it for the news. Now let's jump to TV and movies of the week. And the movie that I'm recommending this week is Hereditary, which came out in 2018. It was written and directed by Ari Aster, and this was actually his first feature-length film, which is just bonkers. When you watch this movie, it is so well done that you would never expect this to be a first-time director for a feature-length film. It was bizarre how good it was. He must have sold his soul to the devil or something. But the stars of this episode were Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, Gabriel Byrne, you may recognize him from quite a few things, and Millie Shapiro. Now, the IMDb plot summary here is, after the family matriarch passes away, a grieving family is haunted by tragic and disturbing occurrences and begin to unravel dark secrets. That's fine and all, but the way that I describe this is, it's a marathon in dread. It is dreadful, and not in the sense that it's a dreadful experience, that it really instills a sense of dread within you and makes you so incredibly uncomfortable, which is what a good horror film should actually do. Now, the thing that I really liked about this is it wasn't one of those popcorn horror films that has a bunch of jump scares. It just slowly builds this sense within you that something terrible is going to happen. I'm not going to say if it does or if it doesn't, but it really successfully builds that fear and that sense within you. Now, another thing that really stuck out to me, was the acting. The acting in this film was phenomenal, and the standout for me was Toni Collette. And she is just heartbreaking to watch. They do such a good job communicating every emotion that they're feeling and everything that they're saying. It is so believable, and it is gut-wrenching. It's so hard to watch. And it's not uncomfortable in the sense like, oh, something really bad's going to happen. It's uncomfortable in the sense that I shouldn't be witnessing such an intimate moment for somebody. I should not be experiencing this. This is wrong for me to be watching, but I am. That's how believable it is. It's like you're watching your neighbor go through some of the most traumatic moments of their life and breaking down in front of you. And oh God, it's jarring and shocking and just excellent. So I guess I'll summarize by saying, if you're looking for a typical jump scare, paranormal activity type horror film, this isn't for you. This is a very slow burn movie, which I love. I love that type of thing because it does allow you time to really sit in the dread. It allows that emotion time to build and really permeate through you and make you feel so uncomfortable. And it does that expertly. So if you do want to watch a film about a family dealing with horrific occurrences and watch them suffer to a point that makes you feel like you're suffering as well, then this is your film. Highly recommend it. Beautifully done. Ari Aster, amazing job, man. I can't believe this was your first film. That is shocking to me. But great job. Let's jump to the next thing, which is what I have been testing. And you've actually been listening to it this entire time. I am using the Sennheiser MD441U, a supercardioid dynamic microphone from Sennheiser, which I've been putting off using for quite some time because it's so expensive. I just feel so dirty using expensive microphones. I felt dirty using the SM7B initially, and that was $400 or $350 when I bought it. The Sennheiser, $900 for a dynamic microphone. It is absolutely insane. But like I said, supercardioid, if you're watching the YouTube video, I'll go ahead and throw the frequency response graph on the screen. As you can see, ridiculously flat for a dynamic microphone. Most of them have huge presence boosts or little nodules going out throughout it. This is almost dead flat with a little bit of presence trickery and maneuvering there. But all around, when I compared this to the SM7B, it's actually a very similar sound, just with an extended low frequency and a little bit of added clarity in the high end if you're into that. And also something, since it is supercardioid, it does a little bit better at background noise rejection, and also it does have a better reach. So what I mean by that is with the SM7B, you need to stay right on top of it within a few inches, or your sound will drop off pretty drastically. But on the other hand, with this one, you can back up a little bit and it maintains that lower body, which is typically what's lost when you back off of a microphone. So really, really nice sounding microphone, really flat and really, really smooth. That's my main thing that I like about microphones, smooth and easy to listen to. And this meets both of those things. But I would love to hear from you guys. Do you like the sound? Do you hate the sound? Do you think $900 is just a stupid amount of money to pay for a dumb supercardioid microphone? Let me know. Now let's go ahead and jump to what you had to say. And the first comment comes from Ducky McDuckerson. And he says, you can't hold creators responsible for people hearing you say you hate one particular mic. People should be held responsible if they misinterpret things. Also, hi, Bandrew. Also, hi, Ducky. How you doing, McDuckerson? I appreciate you, and I agree with you wholeheartedly here. It seems more commonplace today for people to go to, as Bill Burr would put it, IamRight.com and find articles that just confirm what your previously held beliefs were, or it seems more common for people to intentionally misinterpret articles to prove their point. Oh, I want the conclusion to be this, so I'll misinterpret what this person is saying or take it out of context to prove my point. And that is insane, and I don't think the person being misquoted or misinterpreted should be held responsible. But thank you for pointing that out, and agreeing with me makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Next comment comes from American Liberty. I know most people have not had many personal experiences with MS-13 or a myriad of other numerous gangs that operate within the borders of the US, but let me bear witness to the fact that they do not operate under the cone of silence. They openly flaunt their affiliations, criminal intent, and corresponding actions. It is not difficult to find them nor find evidence of legal infractions that they have perpetrated. If I am not clear in my meaning, watch the movie The Untouchables starring Kevin Costner. Great film, by the way. Highly recommend it. The trouble is not finding the criminals. The problem is wanting to find them and then truly holding them accountable. So American Liberty, that is a very great and interesting point. And what I'm about to say may be considered somewhat controversial, but just know I am simply playing the devil's advocate. So I'll start by saying I respect the heck out of our law enforcement agents because, first off, they're protecting us. Second, in many cases, they are doing an outstanding job. And third, they're doing a job that I have no desire to do, but is very essential. So with that being said, and I'm fully aware that's kind of like with all due respect, you're a dick. That's what it seems like I'm doing, but devil's advocate, just remember that. So you do sometimes hear certain departments or certain employees lobbying to keep silly things illegal in order to keep prison populations high, and ultimately that means they're just trying to keep their jobs, and you start to question some motivations of law enforcement or the people in power. So now that I've insulted a bunch of people who work in the prisons, I'll go ahead and say your comparison to The Untouchables is very interesting, and I think there's a good thread to follow there in terms of motivations. So let's start by asking, what motivations do police officers and law enforcement have to stop criminal behavior? Obviously, decreased crime, decreased fear of the general population, and decreased amount of drugs on the street that are being abused. All good things and all very good motivating factors. But on the other hand, what kind of benefits would there be for not catching people who are breaking the law? And this is going to be a much more conspiratorial type thing. So first off, you're going to have increased fear, increased crime, and increased drugs on the street. All very negative things for the general population and for a lot of people. But when you start to tug on that thread, think about who that really benefits. All those things remaining on the street and remaining in the general population. The news agencies are going to have a field day. It's going to keep them happy, healthy, and wealthy because now they have stories to cover and keep people outraged and fearful so they can say, oh, if you go out your front door, you're going to die. Stick around until 10 to find out how not to die. So right there, the news outlets get a huge benefit for law enforcement letting people go or not focusing on taking them off the street. Secondly, it does keep law enforcement funded, where they can say, oh, well, you know what? There's still this much crime going on, so you can't defund us. We need that funding. We need to keep our jobs in order to protect the general population. So there is a big benefit for law enforcement as well. And then lastly, the fear of the general population. That is a big benefit for politicians because they can say, look how bad stuff has been getting over the last 4 years under the last president. I can fix all that. And that will motivate people to go out and say, oh, well, I'll go ahead and vote for this guy because he's going to fix the problem. But like I said, this is just me being the devil's advocate. I just think it's important to follow each of the threads of thought and try to come to some kind of understanding of all the possible outcomes. So that's my little conspiratorial take. I'm going to take off the tinfoil hat and American Liberty. Thank you for the comment. And the last two comments come from the eldest bro and Sound Speeds. They say, so what I take away from this BSP is to go out and start fighting people who eat mushrooms, if you say so. And then Sound Speed says, Bandrew says we need to go after people who like mushrooms. Let's go get them, boys. And I am so happy that Ducky McDuckerson gave me the okay to not be held responsible for people making dumb decisions by misinterpreting what I have to say. I have a huge weight that's been lifted off my shoulders because you guys are on your own. If you want to attack people who eat mushrooms, go for it. I didn't tell you to do that. That's a dumb thing to do. All right, guys, let's get to my favorite part of the podcast, the Ask Bandrew segment. So just a reminder, guys, if you got any questions, go ahead and send them to askbandrew@gmail.com, and I will likely answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. Got a few more coming up, and then I'm out. So go ahead and get those sent in, and I appreciate you guys. So the first email comes from Kemp Cease. He says, hey, Bandrew, do you notice the sound muffling with the windscreen on the Rode broadcaster? BSP-129 sounds very clear, and BSP-130 sounds slightly muffled. The difference? The use of the windscreen in the latter. Do you notice it? I find the same to be true with the SM7B, with versus without the windscreen. It is worse with the thicker windscreen that comes with the SM7B. The naked SM7B sounds great, but it is degraded by even the standard foam windscreen. I notice this with condenser mics as well. Please consider doing a versus series with several mics with versus without windscreens. Thanks, Kemp Cease. Kemp, thank you very much for the email. And I did notice that with the Rode broadcaster. That's what you would expect with any thicker windscreen on it. And that is why when you watch studio videos when they're using the SM7B, typically even the thin windscreen is pulled off and they're just using a pop filter like the one I am using now. So it doesn't affect or dampen the higher end of the SM7B. And I think that would be an interesting test. Go ahead and compare different microphones with different foam windscreens or third-party windscreens or anything along those lines. But it does definitely have an impact on the sound, and it is definitely noticeable. But when I consider putting a pop screen on, or a windscreen on, I should say, is it going to improve the audio more than it's going to degrade the audio? And in my opinion, yes. Because plosives are far more distracting to an audio listener than a little bit of dark recording, a little bit of lost high frequencies. But that's just my opinion, and I appreciate you sending that in and pointing it out. Next email comes from Ecto Prime. He says, hello, I am looking to record a YouTube Let's Play with my kid. Her PC and mine are about 3 feet apart. She currently has a snowball, and I just got the Yeti. We recorded one video, and we bled over on each other's recordings. What would you suggest to get decent sound, but stop that muffled bleed on the other microphone? We tried killing the gain and noise filters in OBS, but it didn't do much. I am looking at the AT2005 microphones. Your review shows they pick up very little from the sides or back. Would that work USB, or would we be better off with an interface to dial it in? Thanks for all the videos, really drilling down on the devices in great videos. Recommending you to tons of people looking at the same hobby. Jeremy, P.S. What editing software do you use for your videos? Currently tinkering with DaVinci Resolve and it seems good. P.P.S. Any opinions on kids on YouTube? My kid will be doing videos with me, but mostly kids on YouTube in general. Is it a good learning experience or a terrifying way to introduce them to the possible cesspool that is the YouTube comments section? Thanks again. Ecto, my God, those are some great questions. So first, let's talk about the bleed between your two microphones and how to resolve that. The first piece of advice that I'm going to go ahead and give you is to find the null areas of your microphone's polar pattern. And what that means is what areas around the microphone's polar pattern pick up the least amount of noise. And all the advice that I'm going to be giving you will be assuming that you are using those microphones in cardioid mode, which is very important. So I'm assuming that you're both set apart 3 feet and your microphones are set perpendicular to your monitors, so the microphones themselves are actually parallel. Rather than setting the microphones up parallel, go ahead and rotate them about 45 degrees in opposing angles. So the degrees between the 2 microphones would be maybe 130 degrees. And what that does is when the person on one side, let's say the right side is speaking, they're speaking into the capsule of their microphone, but they're speaking into almost the exact rear of the opposing microphone. So that should really limit the amount of bleed between your microphones. And of course, you will have to play around with it a little bit. Now, the ideal would be to have maybe a piece of foam in between the microphone so that diffuses or deflects or absorbs a little bit of the bleed. And you could also get a little bit more extreme with the microphone placement where it really is an end-to-end microphone. So 180 degrees of one microphone, the rear of the microphone is pointed at the other person speaking, so it picks up as little audio as possible, and vice versa with the other microphone. But that may not be possible because I don't know if you'd want to have a microphone pointed directly at the corner of your mouth. It may be difficult to position it in that way. So the second piece of advice would be get the microphone closer to your mouth, because when the microphone's closer to your mouth, you're able to decrease the gain of the microphone, and that means quieter sounds that are farther away will be picked up less. It will mainly be picking up the audio coming out of your mouth rather than the audio coming 3 feet away from the rear, because your gain's lower and you're getting more direct sound. Now, third, I do think the AT2005 USBs will be a huge improvement over the Blue Snowball and the Blue Yeti. And I also think that using those microphones as USB would be perfectly fine to start out. And then down the road, if you find that they're not cutting it or that your content is suffering because you're running them as USB, then considering upgrading to an XLR interface, maybe get a couple of DBX286Ss and have some live processing with noise removal, a little bit of EQ, a little bit of compression to really up your game there. But initially, USB would be perfectly fine. Now, really quickly, as far as the video editing software, I use Final Cut Pro, very simple. I did a live stream where I edited a podcast, but I think it's no longer a VOD on twitch.tv/podcastage at this time. So maybe in the future I will do that. But the most interesting question that you asked me is, what do I think about kids using YouTube? Is there a benefit for them or anything like that? So when it comes to this question, I think it's a rather difficult question to answer, especially since I don't have kids. My take is YouTube comments are tremendously vitriolic and disgusting, especially for the younger kids, because they don't have that barrier. They're not completely dead inside, so they're more affected by people criticizing them. So if you want your daughter to experience the YouTube comments and become accustomed to them, I think the best way to go about it would be you have complete access to the YouTube account, you actively moderate the comments, moderate who she's speaking with, and then once you've fully weeded out all the negativity, then bring your daughter in. You can make it an activity that you do together, and you show her what people are saying about the videos, and you guys respond to those comments together. I think that would be a really fun way to allow her access to that interaction, get the little bit of benefit there is without all the negative impact that it can have on a young person's mentality. Now, on top of that, I really don't think there is much benefit to be gained from a young child interacting in the YouTube comments because, as I mentioned, it can be a very disgusting place and there can be some very negative people there. However, I do think there is a tremendous amount of value that can be gained from a child getting into a creative activity like video creation, audio editing, or any of that stuff. Now, what they would be gaining from that is a tremendous amount of troubleshooting, because if you've ever edited a video or edited some audio and processed it, you know how frequently you run into problems. It also forces you to think creatively. How can I solve this problem without buying a $1,000 plugin? And additionally, it's going to teach them some discipline in terms of commitments. Oh, I committed to my audience to make this video once a week, so I'm going to stick to that. there is a tremendous amount of benefit, and those are very marketable skills. Having a good grasp on video editing, audio editing, social media marketing, all these things are very marketable, especially as society moves to more of an online interaction and online experience. There's so much to be gained by that. So I guess in conclusion, I don't think there's much to be gained from interacting in the comments. I do think there's value in the content creation journey, but I also think you can go ahead and make it a joint experience by interacting in the comments. You just get there first, moderate everything, take out all the negativity, all the attacks, which will inevitably show up because it's YouTube, and then you reply to comments together. So, Ecto, thank you very much for the email. I hope that gave you some help, hope that gave you some insight, and I appreciate you sending that in. Guys, that's going to be it for today. Again, want to find audio, video, or show notes? BandrewSays.com. Follow me on Twitter at BandrewSays, and I will see you all next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production, your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.